All right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. We are going to talk about the Ibex briefly today, but I wanted to get a couple of things out here at the beginning. First thing I want to say is I've got some really big announcements coming down the line here on the channel. One of them has to do with a large project that I'm planning, so I'm very excited about it. I've started to get into the geeking out in the details and logistics. And the other announcement just has to do with more sort of broad scale things that are coming to the channel. I guess I'll tease you by saying there's going to be a whole slew of new adventures over the next year. Here's the kicker though, I'm going to wait until the next video to reveal the details of all these new changes, but I wanted to plant the seed. Stay tuned. In about a week, I'm going to be posting a new video where I'm going to jump into all the details. Next Saturday, I've got a big ride planned. I'm going to be doing what I affectionately call a bronze butt ride. So I'm going to be doing a 500-mile half iron butt ride on the Ibex to a very specific location and back, kind of a loop. And that ties into a little bit some of those announcements I've got planned. So just stay tuned. Moving on, I want to talk about the Ibex today. So we are at 3,400 miles, which is what, about 5,500 kilometers. I've owned the bike now for 13 months, so essentially a year. And I feel like I'm in a good position now that the honeymoon phase is over. I've taken this bike on all the varied terrains, varied distances. I've done a couple of long trips. I've done a full Colorado 8-day moto camping excursion trip last summer. Lots of pavement, lots of tarmac, lots of dirt roads like what you see behind me. I've done sand. I've done just about everything you can do on the Ibex, with maybe the exception of really technical, super difficult stuff. I haven't taken the bike up Schnebley Hill Road yet, although it's in the works. A couple things that I can tell you right off the bat is that I have not dropped the bike yet. Fingers crossed. I know at some point it's coming, but that's part of the reason the bike looks so clean, other than the fact that I just take really good care of it. I have not dropped it. So no damage on any of the crash bars, et cetera, et cetera. So it's in relatively pristine condition for 3,400 miles. Now, before I get into the nitpicky stuff, here's the very quick, glib answer for those of you interested in my experience on this bike. I bought this motorcycle to fix a very specific problem I was having with my previous bike, the Himalayan 411. I wanted something that was a little bit bigger, that could handle itself a little better on long road trips, specifically on the highways. I wanted something about the same weight, about the same capability, just a little bit beefier. And in that respect, it's checked all the boxes, baby. This has been a fantastic bike. It's done everything I've wanted it to do. It has filled its very specific role perfectly and precisely. But I do want to talk about a few things. The first thing that I want to say about this bike, I was thinking about this on the way over, is that I've really come to enjoy the 270 twin engine to the point where it's so soothing and comfortable. It's almost like boring in a way. Like, it's just, you get on it and it's just comfortable and calming. It doesn't do anything crazy. It's very reliable. It's very predictable. A fantastic bike if you're just learning. The tank itself is pretty big when you sit on it. I was surprised at how much the tank flares out. Now, it's good for wind protection, but it's just a little surprising. I was very used to sort of that narrow profile of the Himalayan, so that took me some getting used to. If you're a smaller person like me, I'm 5'9", 150-ish pounds, it can feel big. It can feel a little big when you first get on it. Something I wanted to talk about is accessories, because I think this is very important. We're all guilty of this. The moment we buy a bike, it's like this just compulsion. We have to go out and buy every accessory there is. And no matter how many times I buy a new motorcycle, I always tell myself, you don't need all that stuff. Just ride the bike. Just ride it, man. I know it's hard to fight that compulsion, but trust me when I say you really don't need much on this bike to just enjoy it. You can ride this bike honestly stock for most situations and be completely legit, completely fine, completely risk-free, depending on what sort of terrain you're riding on. So just know that if you are primarily a commuter or pavement rider with an occasional dirt road like this, you really don't need anything on the bike other than what's stock, and you can have a blast on it. Now, if you're going to be doing any notable or significant, substantial off-road at all, especially if you know there's going to be rocks. Like this, what we're on here is just a sandy dirt road. If I drop the bike, there's no rocks. I'm not risking rocks really coming up and clinking off things. That's one thing. But if you know you're going to be on some technical stuff, then I would make some recommendations as far as accessories. I am very glad that I bought the larger skid plate. I think that is a necessary accessory if you know you're going to be in any situations where you could have a large rock either scrape under your bike or kick up under your bike. The stock skid plate ain't going to cut it if you're doing anything off-road. So the $150 for that plate, worth it. Other than that though, I will be completely honest with you. Handguards, these are bark busters, 2 points of contact, full protection. You know, I always talk about how that's, you know, it's the first thing I go out and buy, but I haven't dropped the bike yet. I haven't actually used them yet. If I would have kept the factory plastic guards on, they'd still be serving their purpose perfectly fine. And this is what I mean. If you're not going to be doing anything even remotely risky, you don't need to go out and buy bark busters right off the bat. You can just keep the stock plastic protection on there, and it's perfectly fine for weather and wind protection. Same goes for the crash bars. Now, I'm glad I have these. These are great. I think never drop the bike, so I actually don't know. Are they going to bend? Are they going to serve their purpose? Are they going to protect the bike if I drop it? I hope so. Were they worth it? For now, I'm glad I have them. Peace of mind. I'm sure I'm going to drop the bike at some point. But again, if you're not going to be riding off-road, you honestly don't need crazy crash protection. You don't need to go out and buy it right away. Knock out those 600 miles of break-in. Ride the bike nice and easy, and then a few months down the line, buy the bars if you want them. A couple other things I would say. Now, I did buy the full metal panniers. That's just my style. I like having nice, secure cases. You don't need them. They're very expensive. You could get away with soft bags. Whatever your situation is, that's sort of a personal preference. So I got them, and that is one of the few accessory purchases that I'm really glad I have. And I don't regret, and I don't feel like I didn't need it because I actually really do like it, and it serves the purpose that I wanted. I'm also very glad I got the tall windscreen. That is one that I would highly recommend, whether you get the factory CFMoto one or the GV one or the WRS one. They're all fine. They all work. I like the factory one because it's a little narrower. Some of the GVs and other ones are a little bit kind of big and bulky, and I like to be able to look over it. I don't always want to be looking through the windscreen. I like being able to look over it. So I think this is a perfect size, and I'm really happy with it. It blocks all the buffeting. I get wind on the sides, but I don't get any buffeting on my helmet, even with my adventure helmet with the little top fin here. It's perfectly fine. Ooh, take two there. We had a little blowover with the wind. The windscreen, speaking of wind, the windscreen. If you have the tall seat, the windscreen is still sufficient. The only other accessory that I've put on the bike, which for now I plan to leave on because I've really come to appreciate what they do and the extra amount of safety they bring to me, and that is my accessory lights up front. So I'll bring the camera around here, but I've got the factory CFMoto accessory lights on the front, which you can see right there. And I've been very happy with them. They give me enough extra light. They're small enough profile where they're not obnoxious. They tuck nicely up underneath, and they don't mount to the crash bars. So even if I fall over and the bars get bent, these will stay where they are, ostensibly. So I would very much caution against just running out and buying all these things. I think the accessory lights are something that you could buy if you want that extra bit of safety. I think the skid plate underneath is really important. Everything else can honestly wait. It really can. You've got factory handguard protection. You can figure out a luggage situation down the line. You can figure out if you need to put crash bars on it, but honestly, you don't need much, except maybe the windshield too. With that said, do I have any accessories that I still want to put on the bike? There came a point last summer when I was riding over a 12,000 foot mountain pass in Colorado at 4 in the morning, and my hands were just really damn cold. And no matter how many heat warmers I put in my gloves, I was like, you know, it might be time that I look into some heated grips. So I am gonna put those on and see if I like them. If not, I'll take them back off. But I figured it was something that I was due to try, and I think that's going to play into the equation of down the line when I decide to buy my next bike. Will I want heated grips? I think it's going to be one of those things where once I've got them, I'm not going to ever want to go back. So hopefully I don't get spoiled too much with those, but that is my one and only additional accessory that I've got planned for the bike. Let's get back to just talking about the bike. As far as the actual performance of the bike, I stand very much corrected with a stance that I had on this bike for a full year, and that was the front sprocket. So this bike comes geared with a 14-tooth front sprocket. It's great gearing if you're doing a lot of off-roading. It really is. And it performed perfectly adequately at the highway speeds. I had no trouble going 80 miles per hour, 75, 80 last summer, but going 75, 80 miles per hour on this bike with the 14-tooth gearing, it was screaming down the highway. It was green, it was within its spec, but it was not necessarily happy about it. And so I very reluctantly put the 15-tooth sprocket on a couple weeks ago. All I can say is that I'm a little frustrated that I didn't try it sooner, because it has been delightful to ride since I've done that. I've had no degradation whatsoever in my off-road putting around on roads like this. In fact, I actually like how it behaves better because I can keep it in first gear now and I'm not wringing it out. It's just much more manageable in that gearing, even off-road. But most importantly is on-road. I can now cruise down the highway at 75 miles per hour and the bike just feels so much more relaxed, so much more comfortable. When I've got my earplugs in, I don't even hear the bike. So I'm really glad I did that. And as a bonus, I really feel like of all the little tweaks I've made on the bike, tightening the throttle and trying to reset different things and ECUs and all these little like tricks you might see on YouTube videos, changing the sprocket had the most impact on the twitchiness of the throttle. I feel like the bike is so much less twitchy now, and especially on deceleration, and you don't get that immediate lurch as soon as you let off the throttle. I guess that's me just saying, look, unless you're gonna be doing 80% off-road, I really think this bike was meant to be geared with a 15-tooth sprocket. And I know, I can't believe I'm saying that after all the crap that I was saying about engineers know how to do it and they geared it the way it should be geared. That is the one thing that I would say is a recommended adjustment for this bike. Moving on, problems and issues. Well, this will be easy, none. I've had no problems with this bike whatsoever. No major problems, no leaks or gasket seal issues, no resetting of odometers. Apparently that was the thing that happened on some people's bikes. No issues electronically, no issues with the engine, no issues with the feel, nothing changed dramatically, no issues with the suspension, no issues with the tires, no issues with the brakes, no issues with things falling off or feeling like things were cheap. The bike has felt robust, it's felt sturdy, it's felt like any other good bike. I would actually say the tires are surprisingly good for what they are. I mean, they're Scorpion knockoffs, but man, pretty solid. I would love to sit here and tell you, like, you know, I love the fact that they're tubeless. I do, I like that they're tubeless, but it hasn't mattered at all to me because I haven't gotten a flat. So yeah, they're tubeless, which is great. I wanted tubeless, but until I actually have to plug one, they could have been tubed and it wouldn't have made any difference to me, at least at this point. I don't have to carry as much now when I travel. I don't have to carry all the spare tubes. I just carry a patch kit and my pump. And that's it. The other thing I would say is the rear tire, this is a little bit of a gripe of mine, is a funny size. It is a 140/70/18, which is a goofy size. There's not a lot of tires in that size. There's a lot of 140/80s and a lot of 150/70s, but not a lot of 140/70s. And so what most people do when they have to replace the rear tire is they put a 140/80 on, which then makes the bike slightly taller. So that means if you're a shorter person like me, which I can flat foot on the bike right now, when I put that new tire on, I might not be able to flat foot anymore. And in theory, if you put a slightly bigger tire on the back wheel, your RPMs should reduce maybe 100, 150 RPM. in 6th gear. So that'll bring down my RPMs, in theory, even a little bit more than just with the 15-tooth sprocket. But we haven't gotten there yet. 3,400 miles on the tires. The front tire looks brand new. I could probably easily put 5,000 more miles on that tire. The rear tire is starting to see some wear. I suspect I'm about halfway through the tire. So maybe 7,000 miles on that tire, whereas I can probably get 10 on the front. Let's boil it down here. Fantastic bike. Doesn't feel cheap. Rides very comfortably, almost to the point of being like boring, but in a good way. Very predictable, very reliable so far. Haven't had any problems with the bike. Not even a single little niggle or little thing, you know, vibrating, nothing. The electronics are fantastic. It gives me all the data that I need and want. The app is great. The ride feel is great. I really don't think that the weight should be what scares you off. If you're like, it might be a little big. And with that said, I think if you sit on this bike, you might be intimidated by how big it looks and feels when you first sit on it, but give it a chance. Comfort, the seat's perfectly fine. I think Seat Concepts makes a seat for it now, if that's your thing. But CFMoto also makes the tall, squishy seat, which has got more foam in it for touring, if that's your thing as well. I wouldn't really change anything other than the gearing. The 15-tooth sprocket was the one thing that I think really helped improve the overall feel of the bike, and I'm glad I did it. So one last thing that I want to touch on before we end this video is that this is a budget bike. So you're obviously giving up some of the bells and whistles that you would get on a more premium bike, but I think for value for money and for how this bike feels, it doesn't feel cheap, it feels like a quality machine. I really don't know of any other place you're gonna get this good of a deal. And I still feel that way after a year. I was worried after a year I would be like, well, yeah, now that I've been on it for a year, I can definitely notice where they cut corners or where things are a little cheap or where things rattle or where things don't feel high quality. I don't feel any of that. In fact, this even has adjustable suspension. I forgot to mention that. You can adjust the suspension, and I've really gone in there and played around with that. I've gotten it nice and plush. You're not gonna find that on budget bikes. And it's good suspension too, right? It's KYB, this is not bad. This is good stuff. The amount you get for your dollar is fantastic. The one thing when it comes to features you don't get on this bike that I think is worth mentioning, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but cruise control. Now, I've never had cruise control on a motorcycle, but very recently I test rode a couple of bikes that did have it, and I've gotta say, instantly, I appreciated the value of having cruise control. That would be the one thing that I would add. If I could add one single thing to this bike, it would be cruise control, and then it would literally be my perfect unicorn bike for all my situations. If you are somebody like me, you are a beginner to intermediate rider, and you just want to get out on some adventures, pretty low stress level, maybe you hit some off-road here and there, maybe you do a little bit of rocky stuff, maybe every once in a rare while you go up something a little more aggressive like a Schnebly Hill, but 60 to 80% of your riding is going to be on pavement or on class 1 forest roads. You can't beat it. I'm telling you, you can't beat this bike. For the money, for the capability, the only question mark is long term. How's this bike going to handle long term? That, and of course, if I ever do go to sell it, I may not get top dollar for it because, you know, it's not a Honda or a Yamaha, but I kind of knew that when I bought it, and I also knew that I was probably going to keep it for a while. So feel free to ask me questions. I'm going to sign off. Take care, everyone. I'm going to get back out onto these roads and enjoy myself before the sun sets here. And I'll see you next weekend with some big updates and a bronze butt ride. See you then. Bye.